As they say, the process has started. A trilateral meeting was announced in the United States President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and Russian leader Vladimir Putin may meet as soon as late next week. Meanwhile, Trump's talks with Zelensky and European leaders have already produced results. The president of Ukraine said that right after the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska, on August 15, new talks between the Ukrainian and United States presidents will be held to discuss the agenda for the upcoming trilateral meeting. Columbia Broadcasting System news sources say Trump is pushing to hold the trilateral meeting as soon as possible, insisting it should happen as early as next week. Shortly after, Donald Trump confirmed the information and said yes. After the meeting in Alaska, he already instructed his team to prepare the next meeting with the participation of Putin and Zelensky. My name is Alexei Pecci. Today is August 13th on the calendar. And now, let's go through everything step by step. Before we begin, please subscribe to this channel, like the video, comment, and join my Telegram channel Pecci News using the link in the description. In this episode, we'll cover the latest on Trump and Zelensky's negotiations, talks with European leaders, and preparations for Trump's meeting with Putin in Alaska. Insider reports and official statements say Trump, Putin, and Zelensky will meet at the end of next week. Let's review everything step by step. As you already know from the previous episode on this YouTube channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. The Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, convened a whole series of virtual meetings today to try to express the opinions of European and Ukrainian leaders. Ahead of the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, Zelensky joined Merz in Berlin. And earlier on Wednesday, they met with European leaders as part of preparations for the conversation with Trump and United States Vice President J.D. Vance. As Friedrich Merz said, it will remain this important. His words: United States President Trump will begin negotiations with President Putin in Alaska about ending the war, and important decisions may be reached. We Europeans are doing all we can to influence this meeting's agenda. We hope that Donald Trump will succeed at this meeting in Anchorage. The security interests of Europe and Ukraine must be protected in Alaska. This is part of what we discussed with President Trump. We want to ensure the correct chronology, a ceasefire, and sequence. The next discussion of the agreement, legal recognition of Ukrainian territories as belonging to Russia is impossible and completely excluded. Reliable security guarantees are necessary. Ukraine's sovereignty must be respected. Negotiations must be part of a broader transatlantic strategy and necessary pressure on Russia. If there is no action from the Russian side, we and the United States will have to increase pressure on Russia. President Trump knows our position and generally agrees with it, and we had a good conversation. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky said after that, quote, President, everything concerning Ukraine must be discussed with Ukraine. We must be part of this conversation. Ukraine primarily needs a ceasefire and security assurances. President Trump backed us today, and the United States will keep supporting us. Zelensky also said that he told Trump and European leaders that Putin is bluffing and that Putin does not want peace. He wants to occupy Ukraine. As Zelensky says, we know this. Putin can deceive us. We need to pressure him with sanctions from both the United States and the European Union. Together, our alliance of partners can truly stop Putin's war. As for the Friday meeting in Alaska, Zelensky said that he discussed his priorities with Mr. Trump. And here's the quote: We really hope that an immediate ceasefire will be one of the main issues at this meeting. President Trump spoke about this today. Then he suggested contacting me right after the meeting in Alaska. He will inform me of all the results, if there are any, and then we will discuss our next steps together. And what's interesting here is that before the call with Trump, Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, promised to help Ukraine develop its own long-range missile systems, which would not be subject to any imposed Western restrictions on their use and targets. During his conversation with the Europeans and Zelensky, by the way, Donald Trump significantly lowered expectations for negotiations with the dictator Putin and stated that he wants to find out whether the Russian president is serious about ending the war. He called the Friday summit a trial meeting during which he would be able to assess the intentions of the Russian leader, rather than reach any kind of agreement. However, Trump somewhat disappointed allies in Europe by stating that Ukraine would have to give up. He also stated that Russia should agree to a so-called land swap, although it is still unclear which territories Putin is willing to give up. Later, Trump said that after the Friday summit, a meeting between the leaders of Russia and Ukraine could be organized, or it could be a meeting in the Putin-Zelensky-Trump format. But just yesterday, on Tuesday, Zelensky said that Putin wants Ukraine to withdraw troops from the remaining 30% of Donetsk region that is still controlled by the Ukrainian armed forces. As part of the ceasefire agreement, Zelensky categorically rejected this proposal. Zelensky reiterated that Ukraine will not give up any territory it controls, stating that this would be unconstitutional and would only serve as a foothold for a future Russian invasion. By the way, in order to really lower expectations for the Trump-Putin meeting, let me give you a very important quote from General Richard Sheriff. He is the former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander of NATO's Joint Armed Forces in Europe. So he doesn't believe that Friday's meeting between Trump and Putin can lead to an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. And then his quote, "Russia must recognize and Putin must recognize that Zelensky is the president of Ukraine, recognize the Ukrainian constitution and Ukraine's right to exist as a sovereign state. And all of this will only happen when Russia really gets put in its place. And for that, we need to see proper strategic thinking from NATO, from the President of the United States of America, who recognizes that this is about transatlantic security. Even if Putin leaves or gets hit by a bus, we'll probably get someone just as ruthless, just as ultra-nationalist, and just as determined to continue the war in his place. Therefore, I think we have to recognize that European security means deterrence, a steel chain of deterrence, as I have said many times, from the Baltic to the Black Sea, with Ukraine being a member of NATO. No matter how unbelievable it may seem from our current standpoint, that's the reality. Any compromise now, any so-called freezing of the conflict, will only postpone it. Nevertheless, as first reported by Columbia Broadcasting System News, their sources in the White House stated that Donald Trump's team is already working on the location for the meeting between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky, which is supposed to take place at the end of next week. All sources indicate that Trump is determined to quickly organize a trilateral meeting just a week after his meeting with Putin in Alaska, because he's tired of Putin stalling. In Anchorage already, Trump aims to confront Putin with a fait accompli. That is, either at the end of next week he sits down at the negotiating table with Zelensky and starts holding proper talks, or Trump refuses to negotiate with him at all. After that, any dialogue. And after the talks with the Europeans, Trump announced a very high likelihood of a meeting between Putin and Zelensky. Donald Trump stated that a quick second meeting between Vladimir Putin, Volodymyr Zelensky, and Donald Trump will most likely take place immediately after the summit in Alaska on Friday. The likelihood that we will have a quick second meeting is very high. Trump adds that if Putin avoids the first meeting in Alaska or doesn't show real readiness for peace, there won't be a second meeting. There also won't be any more meetings or talks with Putin. He says he wants to see face to face if this monster is adequate and ready for dialogue. Or should we close all diplomatic channels altogether and resolve this issue by other means? I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now.